You never know when it's time to go until you definitely do.
I know I can play, but I don't think I want to. And that's really what it comes down to.
When you add that caveat that I know I still can, that was the only part of that press conference that would make you kind of think, there's probably going to be more to this story.
I remember watching the press conferences with Favre, and I was watching, and I'm like, this dude doesn't want to leave.
Part of me felt that it was mishandled on both sides by the organization and by Brett. I think Aaron did a phenomenal job in handling it, keeping a neutral ground in relation to, you know what, I can control what I can control. I'm just gonna go out and do what I do. I think Aaron did a great job with that.
Aaron checks off all the boxes in what you want to have in a franchise quarterback. So the whole thing about Brett leaving was so wild because it was kind of like, make a decision. We'll be fine either way. We'll keep Brett. Yeah, he'll be 39, but he just made the Pro Bowl at 38 and took us to the NFC Championship game. However, we have a legit roster, and this guy has been sitting for 3 years. And is probably more than ready.
It's April 25th, 2008, and Brett Favre has been placed on the reserve retired list, and the Packers have plans to retire his number 4 jersey at a game during the upcoming season against the Minnesota Vikings. But fast forward 2 months later, and Brett is having that retirer's remorse and wants to come back. He tells Mike McCarthy that. Mike McCarthy basically says, "Nah, man, playing here is not an option."
Brett did something that wasn't the first time that he had kind of done it in relation to the, back and forth. Green Bay had just kind of put their foot down and said, you know what, we just had to move on.
I'm Jen Lada. This is Paper Trail. We are outfitted by Wantable, your personal styling service.
Brett had done this before. And you kind of leave him on the hook timing wise. And you put him in a bind.
Things are starting to unravel in Green Bay. The Packers have already offered Favre a 10-year, $20 million marketing deal to basically not play football, since they knew that this was a possibility.
They offered millions of dollars just to not play, which was one of those things where I think even that became whoa, you're offering this dude millions to literally not play.
It got to the point where Brett actually asked Ted Thompson if he could come back and compete with Aaron Rodgers for the starting quarterback gig at camp. Ted Thompson said, no way.
And the only thing that felt kind of whoa to me was when he had acknowledged, okay, you know what? Let me just practice and let's basically compete. And I remember specifically because that was, to me, fair. You're not talking about any quarterback. You're not talking about a regular Joe Schmo. You're talking about Brett Favre. This guy revitalized, this organization. At least he deserves it to be able to compete for a job, in my opinion. So I was a little surprised when I heard, they won't let him in the building.
I mean, there were meetings that you wouldn't believe. And I can remember Mike getting up in front of us and saying that the train has left the station and that we're moving forward.
Brett Favre asked for a release. Ted Thompson said no way. There were a few things that the organization knew. One, they were ready to move on. And two, they were not going to get nothing in return for Favre if he decided he wanted to continue playing. They knew he had a relationship with Darrell Bevell and Brad Childress in Minnesota, and that he would likely try to force his way there. So even if they were exploring trade options, none of them were in the NFC.
There's no way you're getting traded, not just in conference, not in division, but in conference. Like, whatever we can do to not have him be anywhere.
Teams like the Jets and the Buccaneers seemed like the most likely destination if the Green Bay Packers traded Brett Favre. Next time on Paper Trail, presented by Wantable. We want Brett. Bring Brett back. You suck. All things that the crowd was chanting at Packers training camp to the Packers quarterback. That's next on Paper Trail.